Okay, in the last video, we looked at grabbing a specific cell. In this video, we want to look at grabbing a range of cells. So we've got our same code from the last video where we imported our things and we're loading our pizza workbook and setting the active worksheet. So now we want to grab a range of cells. So let's take a look at our Excel spreadsheet real quick. And let's say we want to grab A2 through A8. We just want to grab these names. Now there are different ways we can do this with columns, but in this video, we're just going to look at grabbing ranges of cells, specific cells. So to do that, we can use something called the cell range function. So let's head back over to our code and let's create a variable called cell_range. And let's set that equal to whatever we want to get. So let's grab WS as the worksheet. And now let's pass in something called a Python slice. We can slice using a colon. And now what does our slice want to be? Well, we want to be A2 through A8. And if we look back at our Excel spreadsheet, that would be A2 through A8. So John and through Jason. Now let's print out our range. So let's call our print function and let's just pass in cell_range, right? So let's save this. Now we know this will probably return a bunch of objects, right? Because we have to call the dot value. But before we do that, let's grab all of this and copy it and let's bring it back over here and just kind of paste it in here to look and see what this is. Now we can see these are round brackets, they're parentheses. So we know this is a tuple. And we can tell that this is actually several tuples. This is a tuple on the outside, and then inside each object that it's returning is in itself in another tuple, right? So this is kind of weird. So in order to get this information, we need to loop through this tuple. So let's go for cell in cell_range. Let's just print cell just to see what we've got here. So let's delete this and we can comment out that. So, okay, let's save this and run it. So you'll notice we're printing out a bunch of different tuples, right? And inside of each tuple is our cell. And we know from our lessons in Python lists and tuples, we can access the first item of a tuple, which would be this guy, and this guy, and this guy, by calling the 0th item of that tuple. So to do that, let's head back over to our code. And instead of printing out cell, let's print out the 0th item of each of these tuples by slapping on brackets and a 0. So now if we save this and head back over here and run this again, now we're just printing out those cells. And they're just the objects as we saw in the last video. So we can dot value these to get the actual values from the cells. So let's go ahead and do that. So we just come over here and dot value. Python is an object-oriented programming language. That means you can do object things. And to do object things, you always just sort of string them along with periods. So we've got this, then we dot this, and we can dot other things if we wanted to as well, but we just want to grab the value. So let's go ahead and save this, and let's run this. And now finally, we get John, Mary, Steve, Tina, Wes, Amy, and Jason. So we grabbed this slice right here. You can slice anything. You could go this way. We could go A1 through B1. We could go A1 through B1. Now, if we save this, it's likely to give us a different output. And in fact, let's clear the screen. And you see, it's just returning one thing. That's because the output is different. The tuple is returning a different thing. So we have to go through this whole process again. So we would start out by getting rid of that, save this, come back here, run it. See, here's our new tuple. So let's copy this and sort of take a look at it. So we're getting a tuple, and inside of that is another tuple with 2 items. So we can call this tuple, it is the 0th item of this tuple, the outside tuple. So we could go cell range and then call the 0th item here. Let's save this and run it. And now we're getting another tuple with things. So now we could loop through that tuple to get our answers. So let's comment this out. And let's go for cell in cell_range, but with a 0 on it. Now we can print our cell, save this, run it. We're getting the two actual values in object form, and now we can dot value those. Run this again, and we get names and favorite pizzas. So that's the slice of A1 to B1, which if we look at our thing is just A1 and B1. Right, so these are how you can grab different ranges of cells. A little bit complicated with all the for looping, but not too difficult once you've done it a couple of times. In the next video, we'll look at grabbing entire columns and column ranges.